I just had to fire a contractor off this job and I'm paying for it. Most people think the hard part is having the guts to actually do it, but it's not. I've hired literally hundreds of contractors and I can count on one hand how many I've actually fired. It's because the real cost of firing someone is way bigger than you think. Let me show you. Now this is what I call the contractor's black hole. That's why we had to fire him in the first place. And that's not to be confused with a total ghosting. Total ghosting means they just went away and you can't get a hold of them. No, the contractor's black hole is much worse because they're being somewhat responsive, but they're not really getting anything done on your job site. They might send somebody out to do a little bit of work and there's just a tiny bit of progress. And every time you feel like you're ready to pull the trigger and fire them, then they do a little bit more. It's almost like they can feel that that's happening. So that's the black hole. You kind of get sucked in and it's really hard to get out. And at the end of this video, I'm going to actually give you the steps that I go through when I'm about to have to fire somebody. One other thing you need to know before I get into issue number one is what type of contractor this was. Basically, there's three types of contractors that we look at. There's the specific job contractor. This is like the people you see on the billboard that is just the plumber, or they're just a roofing guy, or they're just a siding person. And then there's what I call laborers. And that's somebody who you hire and you actually have to manage their work. They don't know what the heck they're doing. You need to tell them exactly what to do. So to hire a laborer, you really have to have very clear expectations and kind of understand construction. You're basically running a crew at that point. And then there's the third type. This is the meat and potatoes. This is like 90% of who I hire on job sites, which is what I call the all-arounder. These are guys that can basically do everything. So they'll do the floors, they'll put in the cabinets, they'll put in the trim, they'll take out the trash if that's what you want. And the best part about these guys is you get to kind of group all the jobs together. And this is fundamental for the solo house flipper methodology, that I want to group all of the jobs together, and that way it requires less touch points for me. And speaking of foundational, the core of the model is that the power is in the money. And that leads us to issue number one that we're dealing with here. Now, this is what you would tend to think, that if you had to cut ties with a contractor, what you would do is you would figure out how much work they had done, and then you would pay them rightfully and then move on. And that makes sense. But the thing is that 50% of the work is not 50% of the pay. Let me explain. So first, just look at this example of these receptacles. Well, they got buried behind the drywall that these guys put up, and I didn't find that out till later. And so I'm gonna have to go up and pay for that. So that's one of the things that could come up that make 50% not 50%, but that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that just think about the first work that gets done on one of these projects. All right, well, first you gotta understand that every crew has like unskilled laborers, but you need those unskilled laborers on your job because you don't want to make the skilled guys have to do all the crappy work all the time, like digging holes and crawling through crawl spaces, getting into attics. And so it's really great for crews to have these unskilled guys to make them do those things. But most of the time, they don't need those guys. So most of the time, they're trying to figure out, what do we get these guys to do to produce so we can make some money off of them? And that takes up a lot of their time. Therefore, the beginning of these projects are always great times to have the unskilled guys put to work. They get to do the demo, they get to do the clean out, they get to do all the stuff like that. And then the skilled guys will usually come in after them on the back half of the job, which leads to the issue of 50% is not 50%. Because if I cut ties with them, all the unskilled stuff got done, but then all the skilled labor is still to be done. So that means that if I go to get a bid to do that work afterwards, well, I have an issue because the contractor who bids that out is going to be thinking, well, gosh, there's only a bunch of skilled work to do. Not only that, but it's a bunch of like punch list items. It's a bunch of little things instead of big jobs that you can produce on. And so they're going to give me a crappy bid, rightfully so. But that's issue number one in a nutshell. Do you think the contractor that I have to fire is going to be thinking that? No, they're going to be thinking, well, we got 50% of the scope done, therefore you owe me 50% of the pay. So I really have two choices at that point. I either say, nah, screw you, man, here's what I'm paying you, or I pay them and then I end up overpaying, obviously. Now that leads to the next issue, which is accountability issues. Now, what I'm always trying to do when I hire contractors, I'm trying to group up as many jobs as I can, because not only do I get better pricing based on the last issue that I just explained to you, but also it's less checkpoints for me, less bandwidth that I have to put out, less pay periods that I have to go through. Not because I hate writing checks, but because I hate driving out there to check the work so I can justify writing them a check. But most importantly is I like to bundle accountability. See, every job that's done, all right, hierarchy here, there's a project that's 123 Main Street, and inside of that project is a job like do the LVP flooring or hang the cabinets or do the trim or do the electrical. And what I want to do is I want to group as many of those jobs as possible into what I call a sub chunk, and then bid that out to a contractor. Hey, contractor, you don't just do the LVP floors, you do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. That way I get better pricing and I bundle the accountability like we just talked about. Because the thing is, there's always a little bit of loose ends in between every job. Like, whose responsibility is cleaning that thing up, or who's responsible? Where does my responsibility end and the next guy's begins? And if you're on top of things and really micromanaging the crap out of things, you'll catch all those loose ends, but that's a really difficult job. It takes a lot of bandwidth. So instead, I want to chunk up these jobs, and that way they take all of that accountability for the glue in between jobs. But that's where issue number 2 comes in. That when I have to cut ties halfway through, there are going to be lots of loose ends that get found later in the project, like all of these that I found just right here. This trim needs to get painted. We found the receptacles inside of the walls. I've already had to pay for a whole bunch of paint touch-ups because they didn't actually finish the paint. There's this little flooring issue that what would have normally happened is I would have gotten to the end of this project and I would have said, hey, well, we're close, but you know, you got to fix all these things that you messed up before I can give you your final check. But of course, I've already given him his final check now when we cut ties. Now, finally, issue number 3 is that this took so long to do. I mean, months, because I was in the contractor's black hole. I had this guy on other projects as well, and I really didn't want to have to cut ties with him because that would have meant that I had to cut ties with him on all the projects that I currently had him on. You know, he's got multiple crews and all that kind of stuff. So that means that he held out. He put me in that black hole for many, many weeks, months even. And what happened in that time is that the manufacturer of this electrical panel, which if you guys know the phases that I teach, there's courses on my website for free if you want to know the phases and the order of project management, I do. But anyway, putting in an electrical panel comes really early in a project. So I put this electrical panel on months and months ago, and then he came in and did this work, put me in the black hole, and now I'm coming back to get final inspections on the property. As ugly as it is in this house, we're only days away from actually getting it to the finish line. But I have to replace the whole panel because I can't find the parts that go inside of here, the actual breakers. You know, in the rough end, you're not going to put the breakers in. Generally, you just put the box in and then you'll come back in at final after everything's in the house. And that's when you'll put the circuit breakers in the actual panel. And I can't find them. So I have to take the panel out and put in a new one. It's going to cost me, you know, probably $1,500 or something that I wouldn't have had to pay otherwise. So part of that is my problem because I took so long to do this project. I could have pushed harder, but I'm always trying to find ways to save my bandwidth, and this one didn't work out so well for me. All right, so let's talk about how you actually break ties with these guys. And here's what I do. It's pretty simple. That once I'm ready to actually take action, I simply give them an ultimatum. But the important thing is, especially if you only have one project going on, you're really going to be focused on this project, and so you're really going to want to push this one along. And so the tendency is going to be that you're going to get mad about it, and you're probably going to give an ultimatum based on anger. You can't do that. You got to be very reasonable, extra reasonable on this. Let's just use an example. Let's say the thing that they're working on right now is the LVP flooring. Well, I'm going to give them a timeline that is extra reasonable. I'm going to give them like 10 days. I'm going to say, right, because flooring should take like a day or two. If I give them 10 days and I'm going to shoot them a text, or better yet, if I can get them on a phone call, but usually if you're in the black hole, it's really hard to get people on the phone. So a text will do because there's proof that you sent it and they will certainly get it. And you're going to say, hey man, I'm really sorry, but I have to get this project moving. I have loans to pay on it, and we have plans for all this. I have contractors lined up to come in after you, and I really don't want to mess with their timelines. That's always a good one, by the way, because for one, it should be true, and two, is a contractor can sympathize with another contractor not wanting to get their schedule pushed around. And because of all that, man, I'm gonna have to cut ties with you if I can't get this flooring in by 10 days from now, right? That's a very reasonable timeline. If they want to continue working with you, they will absolutely get that done. And now, of course, once you get that done, you're going to open up the lines to have a conversation with them about, hey, like, I can't have this anymore. So the other jobs that I have you on this project need to get sped up as well. And then you can set some harder timelines there. But the point is, with this ultimatum, if they don't make that timeline, no matter what excuses they give you, you just got to cut ties and move on. And that's it. It's that simple. Just take some kahunas. But here's the thing to remember, guys. This is very important, that the key in this game is the relationship capital. If you have to go find new contractors for every project that you do, your bandwidth is going to get sucked dry. And what you really need to be out there doing is focusing on getting better deals, or focus on being able to actually live your life, spend more time with your family, do all the things that you decided to become a one-man house flipping business for. And it ain't chasing contractors down all the time. So the key is to build a relationship capital with these guys, to where they start to understand your methodology, they understand your systems, they understand the things that you like on projects, and they just remember you really have to do way less once you've worked with a guy for 3 or 4 projects. And not only that, but there's intrinsic value in this. This is why I like house flipping so much. And when I say house flipping, I mean flipping to sell or to rent. But the act of using construction to add value to properties, because you're actually doing something. You're actually making things better out there. You're taking a house that wasn't livable or is less than livable before, and now you've made something really nice. But not only that, but you're giving jobs to people. Guys, that's what entrepreneurs do, is they provide jobs. And even though we don't have any W-2 employees, these subcontractors that you're hiring, well, these are hardworking people who are just trying to put food on their families' plates and their crew's plates. And so the fact that you get to be a part of that is very intrinsically valuable. And I hope that that's one of the reasons that you love this business. And anyway, I made a whole video about the 18 rules for managing contractors, because it's a really fine line between managing with an iron fist, so to speak, and the line of making sure that you're building relationship capital. That's why I made this video. Check it out right here. Sorry about the lighting, guys. Talk to you next time.